new or a very unique and different than before set of habits, because before that his habits were different, as he didn't pay any time, he didn't utilized any of his time to study. He wasted his time in different habits like playing or whatever he is socializing, whatever. But now he has to change the habits. He has to remove all those habits, he has to eradicate all those habits, and he has to come to study. Obviously that, therefore it is not easy. A person who hasn't ever studied well, who hasn't ever paid attention to study, who hasn't ever worked hard, to work hard now in order to avoid failure, obviously this is not easy for a boy. No one can do this but the boy himself, and only again the boy himself can do it. We cannot do anything for him. All that the rest of us can do is to point out what is the matter. We can just point out that what is the matter with him is that why he has failed, because we feel we have to point out to him that we feel that you are genius, you are intelligent, and you have overconfidence upon yourself. You thought that you could pass the examination just by listening to the lectures and not paying any attention to studies at home, therefore you have failed. So the rest, the later stage will be just dealt by the boy himself, to in order to change his own habits, and he has to change his attitude of overconfidence, and he has to bring himself up to the study. The question of health, both physical and mental, is always one of the reasons for failure. Another reason for failure is physical and mental health. The question of health, both physical as well as mental. He is talking about health, not only physical but also mental. If an adequate health service is available in the college, if the colleges offer some health services, and if proper cooperation exists between the teaching staff and the office of the college doctor, an immense number of failures can be avoided. Actually, students and here in our country, that's not usually a trend to have a doctor and a psychiatrist, but usually, but in somewhere you can see that colleges often offer us services with respect to health, with respect to any psychological problems and behaviors of the students. So he is actually talking about the schools in Europe, and he says that if it depends, if college has a proper a formal college doctor, and there is a cooperation between the teachers and the doctor, and they have a proper discussion about the students' progress in study, the discussion of teachers with the doctor, then this failure can be avoided. And what is just as important, the reason for inability to do satisfactory college work can be clearly understood by the boy, his parents, and the college authorities. And the more important thing is that, and the same of equal importance is the thing that the boy should also be made aware of this problem, and the parents and the college authorities also should keep it in mind that the boy is failing because of his failure, because of his bad health, either physical or mental. So this thing should be considered, thing should be made discussed. In the case of poor academic work, the reason for which is not apparent is it is my custom always to ask the student to undergo a thorough physical examination. The writer himself says that in case of poor academic work, if some student is showing poor academic performance, the reason for which is not apparent, and we cannot understand why is he behaving like this, why is he unable to perform well, when we cannot find any other apparent reason, then it is my custom. So the writer says it is my custom, it is my as teacher, it was his routine, it was his custom that he used to ask to his students to undergo a thorough complete physical examination. It is surprising to find out in how large a percentage of such cases the university physicians finds an adequate reason for the difficulty. And he says that it is surprising, one is surprised to find out in how large a percentage of such cases the university physician finds an adequate reason for the difficulty. And as because they are not made aware at college level about their physical problems, they are not made conscious of the physical problems or mental health, and therefore when they go to the university, what happens that the university physicians find very difficult for the students to identify such problems with them. Tuberculosis, bad tonsils, sleeping sickness, poor digestion, various forms of mental and nervous difficulty have been brought to light by the doctor during the forms of mental and nervous difficulty have been brought to light by the doctor during the past few months, to the unspeakable relief of the student and enlightenment of the faculty. He says that different diseases like tuberculosis, bad tonsils, sleeping sickness might be that a boy is unable to sleep well, poor digestion, various forms of mental and nervous difficulty. There are different forms of mental and nervous difficulty have been brought to light by the doctor. Doctors usually have brought to light such kind of diseases during the past few months, and that is to the unspeakable relief of the student and enlightenment of the faculty. And obviously when some faculty knows and the student himself knows that this is the actual problem because of which I am unable to study, obviously that is a kind of relief to the student, that this is not the problem is not of his bad performance. It is not because of his lack of attention to study. It is not because of the lack of genius or intelligence. It is not because of the badly opted subject, whatever. So the reason is actually physical, and which it can be easily dealt with. So it gives a relief to students as well as to faculty. Occasionally one meets an old-fashioned person like the father who told me a few months ago that although we had arranged to have his son's tonsils removed without expense, he would not consent to the operation. Okay, sometimes it occurs that an old-fashioned person like the father who told me a few months ago, a father told him, the writer, a few months back, that although we had arranged to have his son's tonsils removed, one of the experiences that sometimes it occurs that we have identified the problem, but the parents are not ready to accept that reason for the failure of their boy. And for example, he says that we had arranged an operation for son's tonsils without any expense, and he would not consent to the operation, and the boy's father wasn't willing for that operation. He asserted that Allah put those tonsils in his son's throat for some good purpose, and the doctor and the parents said that the God or Allah had put those tonsils for some good purpose, and that he would not stand for their removal, and he was not willing to remove those tonsils which were creating problem for him to study. Since the boy was absorbing too much poison to permit proper application to his college work, the boy had to absorb too much poison to permit proper application to his college work. We had to ask him to go home. So therefore he was asked, the boy was asked to go home. Of course, such cases are rare, and such kind of cases are obviously rare, but it is necessary. They occur not so often, but it is necessary to keep constantly in mind the simple fact that there is no substitute for health, but we should keep it in our mind that there is no replacement of health. Is very good health is very essential. It is very necessary, and that however such a man may know, it is not of much value unless he possesses the physical vigor to bring it to bear on the world's problems. And one should have the morale also, one should have the courage also to accept some physical or mental health problems if one has got in himself, or someone's son has got. Fine. Nowadays, when most ambitious boys want to go to college, the financial pressure is a very serious one, and another problem is financial pressure. Some of the boys, they are so ambitious to go to college, but they are not so strong financially. They are short of money. A few parents take the position that the boy should earn his way through college for good of his soul, and some of the parents ask their boys, their sons to that if they want to study, they should also earn at the same time in order to go smooth in their study or finance their study. As a matter of fact, no boy ought to be compelled to earn his entire way through college if it can in any way be avoided. And the writer says that it is not good that a boy is compelled to earn his own living in order to bear the expenses of his study in college. It should be avoided as much as possible. Not only does he get a mighty poor living by the process, and in this way, not only he lives poorly, but a mighty poor education as well. And obviously, if he is giving a lot of his time, half of his time to earning, his education will also get poor. If the boy ought to go to college at all, he ought to be trusted to make good use of reasonable contribution from his parents towards his expenses. And if a boy is going to college, he manages somehow to go to college, he ought to be trusted to make good use of reasonable contribution from his parents towards his expenses, that his parents should also cooperate, should contribute a good amount to his expenses. Any parent owes this much to his son, and obviously any parent owes this to his son. It is a son's right to be that his studies should be afforded by his parent. The boy did not ask his parents to bring him into the world, because it is not the boy who himself asked the parents to come into this world, to bring him into this world. They are responsible for his being here, and consequently they have the responsibility for giving him the best equipment possible to meet the world's problems. Obviously they have made him born. It is their duty to give them all of the equipments, all of the things necessary for his survival in this world. Nevertheless, many boys are